it is unbelievably hot in this country right now. I've had to bring out the Big Trouble in Little China tank top as there's a heat wave in England and it is fucking boiling, man. Honestly, I feel like that bloke at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark right now. But anyway, hello and welcome back to A Real Horror Show. If you're new here to the channel, my name is Liam, hello, it's nice to meet you. And on this channel I talk about all things horror. From videos about horror collectibles to horror movie reviews and whatever comes between those two things. I've got you horror nerds covered, so please consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss out on any more of my future videos. Go on, press it. I dare you. Seriously though, I promise that you won't regret it. So last weekend me and my friends flew out to Germany to Europe's hottest horror convention, the Weekend of Hell. The convention has been running for a few years now, and over those years I've had some incredible guests there for fan meet and greets, including Bruce Campbell, Nick Castle, Tobin Bell, Dario Argento and Robert Englund, just to name a few. We've actually been to this convention before, the last time was in 2019, which is where I met many cast members from the original Friday the 13th from 1980, including Ari Lehman, who played Jason in that infamous ending of the film, Robbie Morgan, who played Annie, Janine Taylor, who played Marcy, Ron Milkey, who played Officer Dorff, and the legendary film composer Harry Manfredini, who of course did the score for the film, as well as many others. Additionally, I also met Ken Kirzinger there, who played Jason Voorhees in 2003's Freddy vs. Jason. This resulted in one of my all-time favourite photo ops I've ever had taken at a horror convention, or any convention for that matter. I mean, look at that thing, that looks like something from a Scooby-Doo episode. Ken was really cool to go along with that idea and pick me up, and it resulted in such a great photo. Now, unlike a lot of other conventions, Weekend of Hell is an extremely chilled experience. It wasn't overly packed or busy, which means everyone there had a good opportunity to go up to the celebrity guests there and have a chat and a talk, and that's something that, you know, doesn't usually happen at conventions. On top of that, there was a lot of amazing vendor stalls that sold all kinds of horror collectibles, figures and other merchandise. Now, one thing I will say about Germany is that if you're a physical media collector, that is the place to be. There was a crazy amount of physical media stalls, and they sold all kinds of different collector's editions of Blu-rays and media books, which are just gorgeous and have some incredible artwork on the front. On top of that, a lot of those media books and collector's edition Blu-rays are extremely rare. So yeah, overall the convention was just a fantastic experience. Me and my friends absolutely loved it, and we all said that we would 100% go to the convention again. Unfortunately though, due to the pandemic,
swallow this.
2019 was the last year for the convention until, of course, this year, 2023. And when I saw the convention announced that producer and director S Cunningham would be attending the convention, I knew that I had to try and go. For those who don't know, S Cunningham is the director of the original Friday the 13th, so he basically laid out the groundwork for that franchise. But then when the convention announced that in addition to S Cunningham, they'd be having Alyssa Sutherland from Evil Dead Rise, as well as members of the cast of the original The Evil Dead, including Betsy Baker, who played Linda, Teresa Tilly, who played Shelly, and Hal Delrich, who played Scotty, I knew I had to be there. I've wanted to meet those guys for years, and honestly, if I would have missed this convention this year, I know I would have regretted it massively. So after financially crippling myself over the joys of being a collector, we booked our tickets for the convention and sorted out all the travel, and then we headed out to Germany. We landed in Dusseldorf late on the Friday night, and after a short train ride from Dusseldorf airport to our hotel in Duisburg and a trip to McDonald's for a McRib, which by the way is, they're so good. They are so delicious, and I wish they were on the UK menu. We then settled for the night, ready for the Weekend of Hell. The next morning we made our way to the convention, and I've got to say the venue that it's held in definitely fits the event. The place looks like an abandoned factory where Jigsaw would take his victims or something. But after a few minutes of fearing for our lives, we made it safely inside the convention. And just like back in 2019, we had such a great time. There was two main halls stalls inside the venue, as well as a third room that was for like a Q&A. It was like a huge stage. Honestly, I thought the Foo Fighters were about to come out and do a gig or something, which makes sense because the venue is used for a lot of rock and metal concerts. But in the first hall was where all the celebrity guests were sat, where they'd sign autographs, and also the photo op room was just connected to that. And the second hall was just completely dedicated to horror merchandise. There were plenty of stalls selling all kinds of horror action figures, from recent NECA Ultimate and retro cloth figures to their old school 18-inch cult classic action figures. In addition to all the collectibles, there were also stalls and vendors there selling various props and costumes, such as a couple of life-size Chucky dolls. Speaking of that, there was also some really cool life-size horror figure like statues on display there. I was a big fan of the Pennywise one. I thought that looked really cool. And just like back in 2019, at least 80% of the vendor stalls in that big hall was all for physical media. If you're big on your collector's editions and Blu-rays and media books and all that kind of stuff, this place would be like heaven for you. Sadly, I didn't come away with any merchandise this time around at this convention to like show you guys as like a haul, I guess. Mainly because I'm a very poor boy. Nobody loves me. However, while I was there, I did get quite a few autographs on some different art prints and met some really cool guests. The first guest there that I actually met was the legendary Sean S Cunningham, and it was an absolute honour to meet that man and shake his hand, and to thank him for his contribution to the world of horror. He was a really kind man, and I was extremely thankful to add his autograph onto my Friday the 13th art print from Bottleneck Gallery. The poster is of course signed by all the rest of the Friday the 13th cast that I mentioned earlier when I met them back at the Weekend of Hell back in 2019. But it was really cool because in addition to Sean's autograph that he wrote over the cabin on the poster art, he also added like a little red signature on the foil knife on the print, which looks really nice. It's just one of those small gestures that definitely go a really long way. And I mean, this poster with all those cast members on it was already a grail piece in my collection, but now with Mr. Sean Cunningham on there, this piece is just insane. I'm hoping to add Tom Savini onto the print by the end of the year, but unfortunately I don't think I'll be meeting Kevin Bacon anytime soon. Now, the second guest that I met at the convention was Alyssa Sutherland, who plays Ellie, the demonic mother, in the recently released Evil Dead Rise. And just to remind you, I did do a review of Evil Dead Rise on my channel, so if you're interested in that, I highly recommend you go check out that video. There's my shameless channel plug of the day. And Alyssa was just so lovely to meet. She is extremely nice, and it was wonderful to just talk with her about, well, the Evil Dead. One thing that I told her was, well for starters, I told her that her performance in that film was absolutely incredible. I mean, in my opinion, her performance as Ellie was just absolutely unreal in that film. And secondly, I told her that my favourite shot in the film is a scene where she comes out of the bathroom and she like peeks her head around like the door frame. I thought it was a really creepy shot in the film, and it's that kind of imagery like of her peering around that kind of sticks with you afterwards. And Alyssa was really happy that I brought that up because she told me that that's actually director Lee Cronin's favourite shot in the whole film, and apparently it's a reference to the famous skull artwork of Evil Dead 2 that appears on the famous poster. That's something that I've heard people talk about online, that it was a reference, and I thought that could be a bit far-fetched and stuff, but apparently it's true. So the fans were right. It was really cool to get that piece of trivia from Alyssa. So I asked Alyssa to sign the famous quote, "Mummy's with the maggots now." I was a bit apprehensive to ask her for it in a way because she was the busiest guest of the day without a doubt. She always had a long queue, and I was just thinking like, how many times must she have written that quote in that day? And I told her that, and she said, "Oh no, don't worry about it," like and of course she signed it, and now I have both Alyssa Sutherland and Lee Cronin on this Evil Dead Rise lobby card, which I actually got at the London premiere for the film where I met Lee Cronin. So yes, this is a piece that I'm extremely happy with, and I cherish it very much. So yeah, Alyssa was definitely the busiest guest at the con, which is great because it just shows how much people actually did love Evil Dead Rise and how much of an impact that film has made. I then had another opportunity to meet Sandy Johnson, who played Judith Myers in that iconic opening scene of John Carpenter's Halloween. We all know that scene, and it's an absolute classic. This was actually the second time I've got to meet Sandy, as I met her back in 2019, not at Weekend of Hell, but at Texas Frightmare Weekend. I really hope I can go back to that convention again one day. It was was just insane. And Sandy is really sweet. We talked for a few minutes about the impact and the lasting legacy of Halloween, and she found it funny the fact that I watched that film when I was 6 or 7 years old, but she said that most fans of, well, horror, but of Halloween in general did watch the film at that kind of age. We then talked for a few minutes about John Carpenter and just what an absolute genius that man is. It was really cool to meet Sandy again, and she signed my Halloween poster print from Bottleneck Gallery, which already has Charles Cyphers on there, who played Sheriff Brackett, and Nancy Loomis, who played Annie. I'm hoping to add a few more signatures to that in the future, mainly Nick Castle, who will be appearing at For Love of Horror in Manchester in November. Before I met the cast of the original Evil Dead, I bumped into some familiar and very friendly faces at the convention. The first were my good pals Dutch Horror and Slasher Pepper. These two guys are absolutely lovely, and you should definitely check out their pages on Instagram. I will put a link to them in the description below, so go and check those out. It was class to meet up with these guys again and just have an overall catch up. I was also featured in Slasher Pepper's YouTube video of his vlog for the Weekend of Hell. It was an absolute pleasure to be in his video, so you should definitely go and check that out. Again, I will put a link to that in the description. Please go check out his channel, subscribe to him, and show him some love. I also finally met my friend Emmanuel, who runs the page Evil Dead Italia. Emmanuel is, like me, a massive nerd for the Evil Dead. We are massive Evil Dead fans. We've known each other for years but never ever got to meet up. In fact, it was actually Emmanuel who gave me his London premiere ticket to go see Evil Dead Rise because he couldn't make it over to the UK, so he very kindly gifted it to me, so I got to go to that London premiere because of Emmanuel, and I'm still extremely thankful for that. But as I said, Emmanuel runs the page Evil Dead Italia, which is a fan page that's completely dedicated to the Evil Dead franchise, and Emmanuel also hosts weekly live streams where he discusses aspects of the Evil Dead franchise with other fans in the Evil Dead community or people directly involved with the films. He even did a live stream interview with Lee Cronin not so long back. On top of that, I was actually featured on Emmanuel's live stream just last week discussing the Weekend of Hell and meeting the Evil Dead guests. So please go check out Evil Dead Italia over on Facebook, Instagram, and of course over on YouTube, where you can find those live streams. I've said it before and I'll say it again, the best thing about conventions is the friendships that you make along the way and how conventions just bring everyone together. And this brings us nicely to the final guest that I met, which was the cast of the original The Evil Dead. And as you can imagine, I was freaking out over this. But unfortunately, Alan Sandweiss, who plays Cheryl in the film, and Cheryl in the Ash vs Evil Dead TV show as well, wasn't at this convention as she's taken a break or hiatus or just in general stopped doing conventions right now, which really sucks. It's just one of those things, I guess. But with that said, getting to meet the original ladies of The Evil Dead, Betsy Baker and Teresa Tilly, and of course 𝙆𝙍𝙍, who played Scotty, was just an unreal experience. And to top it off, everyone was just so lovely. It was great to be able to tell them all just how much The Evil Dead means to me and how much impact it has had on me as a horror fan and a movie fan in general. It was great to be able to ask them different questions about the film and just overall just have a chat. That's what was so great about this convention, just like back in 2019. When it gets more quiet towards the end of the day and there's not as many people getting autographs and all that kind of thing, sometimes you can just walk up to the guests and just have a general chat with them. Of course, I had to get their autographs on my Evil Dead 1 print by the incredible, legendary horror artist Graham Humphreys, who, if you didn't know, did the original iconic artwork for the UK release of The Evil Dead back when the film was initially released. But like I said, it was really cool to get all of their autographs, and they all put little quotes that their characters said in the film, which I highly appreciated. My favourite one might be the one that 𝙆𝙍𝙍 wrote, because it's one of my just favourite goofy little moments from the first Evil Dead.
Party down! Yeah!
Then Teresa Tilly wrote,
"For God's sake, what happened to her eyes?"
and of course I had to ask Betsy Baker to put the quote, which is definitely the creepiest scene in my opinion from the original Evil Dead. I think that imagery and the way she sings the song, it's just very iconic, and I think the moment from that original film that still holds up massively today, especially in terms of its creepy factor. I also appreciate that Betsy Baker, when she did the autograph, she actually sang it and did like an evil little laugh at the end of it. Also, while I was meeting the Evil Dead cast, I couldn't not show them the photo that I had taken at Texas Frightmare weekend, where I was in my Ash Williams cosplay and I met Sam Raimi, Ted Raimi and Bruce Campbell himself, and they all could not believe that it was me in the Ash costume, and they all said I nailed it, which is a massive win in my book, and it definitely put a smile on my face to say the least. I'm really hoping that one day in the near future these guys will get invited to a UK convention, and I think it would be great to have an Evil Dead reunion with all the cast members and also with Bruce, Ted Raimi, maybe Sam Raimi. Fingers crossed that that is on the cards for the future. So that concludes today's video. This was something, I guess, a little bit different. Not quite a whole video, but not quite a vlog either. More of a, I guess, a weekend recap. I don't know what to call it. We'll just call it another collectible showcase, I guess. And if you guys like to see horror collectible showcase videos, I have a ton of those now on the channel, as well as many other nerdy horror videos as well. Especially if you're new here and you love videos about horror collectibles, go to the channel and check out my backlog that I have so far. I do a lot of top 5 collectibles videos of different franchises. I've done one on Chucky and on Freddy Krueger collectibles, etc. and Evil Dead. So if you like that kind of thing, please go check it out. The love and the support on this channel is always more than appreciated. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and until next time guys, take care.